All right, we are live. All of you freedom-loving boys and girls, whomever you are, wherever you are on this great big blue marble of a planet we call Earth, welcome to another episode of our Loadout Lives. As you can see, he's been on here before, but I'll introduce him in a second and he can tell you a little bit more. We got Chappy, our special guest for tonight. And tonight's episode, I can just tell you, is going to be different. We're not going to focus on a singular piece of gear. We're going to focus a little bit more on the concept and ideas behind gear. And, you know, Chappy, who's done, and that's Chappy so graciously, said he'd be on the Tonight Show. Chappy has easily, and again, if you don't remember Arizona Vets, he takes people out in the woods working on trails out in Arizona. And, he's easily had to have hundreds of people, their loadouts, the gear, making sure they're bringing the right stuff for their, longer excursions and when they're out there doing trail maintenance. So that's kind of tonight's thrust or kind of topic, if you will. That's what we're going to talk about. And hopefully you'll find it interesting, because before I kind of do the, my housekeeping or the fluff, as the one gentleman calls it, but, you don't know what you don't know. And there are men and women out there who really don't spend a lot of time out in the woods, but they would like to, right? So our goal is learn from this man, learn from all the mistakes he's seen people made, the mistakes he's made. I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes. We all have. So this is kind of one of those lessons learned type of opportunity. And then take some of the advice and this does work well. And then don't be afraid to try. But as we get into it, but don't make your first time trying the most difficult thing that even ninja cyborgs couldn't, survive or pass. So don't do it that way. Keep it within reality. All right. I'm going to do comments and then I'm going to do a little housekeeping. We got Gene. Woo! As always. What's up, Gene? Snowshoe checking in from just outside of Detroit. Not Detroit. Kentucky Fried Movie. They're torturing a guy. I'll never talk. Oh, do this. I'll never talk. Do this. I'll never talk. And then they send him to Detroit. And the guy's like, no, I'll tell you everything. Henner Ben, Minnesota in the house. And then here we go. Chappy just made his own comment, even though he's a guest. He was like, Mark's going to ramble for a couple minutes, so I'll do my own intro in the chat. All right. But we've
been so bad about the keeping up with the chat bar. So I'm going to help Mr. Mark with that and just make sure if you have any questions for me specifically, feel free to keep bugging us, because it would be great to answer those in real time.
And that is honestly very true. I mean, even if there's not a lot of people watching, where the case is, you're trying to have a conversation, you're trying to be engaged, you're thinking, you're doing this, and then there's the chat. And you guys and gals in the chat are awesome. So yeah, if you have questions, and we've said this many times, and I really want to make that clear going forward, do not hesitate to ask a question. And then, myself or the guest, depending on who the question's for, we'll do our best to answer. Then just kind of keep it on. We got Phil checking in. Phil, nice to see you, sir. And VTech Moonwalker in the house. Just got the live notification. It's up. And then Gene looking forward to hear what you've got to say, Chappy. Thanks for that shout out, Gene. And then
thanks, Gene.
We got John checking in, reporting for duty from Ohio. All right, I think we're caught up on comments.
All right.
Hey, I've got 2 shout outs I just want to make real quickly. That's my housekeeping. Well, I'll start off before I do the shout outs. Thursdays, CLS After Dark. And just like the drug, you don't know if it's going to last 2 hours or 4 hours, but our CLS After Dark on Thursday, very special. We're kind of wrapping up the whole Coast Benghazi, and we're going to have an individual on. So you guys all know DB. DB was there. I mean, you not to relitigate or talk about that, but DB was there for the evacuation, the events afterwards. That's how I know DB, blah, blah, blah. But instead of coming at it from the perspective of, former CIA personnel, we're going to have a spouse on who's going to talk about what it was like to be evacuated from a country in the middle of a war. And then Benghazi obviously is kind of the backdrop for that. So that's Thursday. That's this Thursday's Cialis. That's going to be a good, very good episode. So if you guys can join us, please do. And then I just got to give a couple shouts out. First shout out is going to Alex W. I don't know if he's watching the live. It doesn't matter. I had a conversation with Alex last week. So here, let me just show you guys something real quick. So the old version mud flaps. So yeah, you can kind of see if I can do a better job of it. Yeah, so there's the adapter spot, and that's where the G hook went. The way we're going to do it going forward is if you want the G hook, you can still order it, but we're going to switch it over to plastics because that's going to save money, right? And if you want the G hook, we can still do it that way, but otherwise we're going to replace that with plastics. But we haven't started that yet. So this is how they go out, and there's a G hook with it. I put the G hooks in the envelope with everybody's invoices, the notes I write, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. Did I screw up one day? I mean, I have a system for it all. I mean, I'm a human being. Possibly. Did he lose it? Possibly. But I've had people throughout the time, and maybe Chappy, just as a small side note, get your thoughts on it. But what I really liked about Alex, and I got it, and this is where I've got to give Alex props and a shout out, is he just came up and said, hey, look, I give you my word as a man. I have no idea if they were in there. I have no idea where they are. And that was good enough for me. So, sent them 2 more. So there's $15 in shipping and, 2 more things out of my pocket, so $25 total. But that's what honesty gets you. Guy was just straight up. He's like, man, I have no idea. I mean, I'm looking around. I can't say that I did, and I can't say that I didn't, but I can give you my word that I did not throw them away. Like, in other words, like, whatever happened, good enough, right? Because we're all human beings. And Alex W. So for that, I thank you very much. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And then I won't be able to read it. I really appreciate this. This guy sent me this. This is an email just talking about the individual's experience, the gear. I'll end up talking to this guy and ask him to see if he can post it on the website as like a write-up, like for a review for the gear. But I just wanted to simply just show this and just say, I so appreciate it. This guy took this much time to write me an email talking about how much he appreciated the gear and the customer service and everything. So you guys, Alex and this gentleman here, well, his name is Joel. We'll just say it's Joel. You guys really made my day. I really appreciate it. That's my housekeeping, Chappy. But what about, do you have any comments on that? Joel too, that just taking the time, but Alex, the truth, the honesty.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know what else to, honestly, I don't have any other comments. I think you said it beautifully. I think that's an amazing connection, and someone that really appreciate, what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Well, and I just think, just as we're going to talk about tonight, and maybe I should have set that up a little bit better. I'm kind of rushing through things here at the beginning. Just another day, just getting all this stuff up. Chappy can attest to us. I'm like out of breath and calling him for the pregame with like 3 minutes before we go live. It's just, right up to the last second again. But no, it's just that appreciation. And as we're going to kind of talk about, if you're going to be out in the woods, even if it's with your family, even if it's car camping, I'm just going out into the woods. I think almost every horrible survival story starts off with, I was just going out into the woods, right? So you have to be honest with yourself. And I think, Chappy, that's where I was kind of going is.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And it starts there.
We don't have woods. I get the saying, but we have the desert out here, and we can talk about this as we continue. But a lot of people that haven't experienced true desert hiking before or backpacking, it's way different than, hiking anywhere that really has, really it's access to water. So yeah, I'm excited to share the lessons learned, and hopefully, we were talking earlier, Mark, about, as a dad, we want to make sure that if there's any dads out there that are looking to bring their little kiddos out for the first time, or maybe want to try something new, a new experience for those kids, we hope to help. The gear is obviously the conduit to the experience, but the experience has to be in line with the ability of the person.
Amen. We'll get into that. I saw some comments that came in. We just got to do that, and we'll jump into the rest of the actual show. Gene is saying, and I know he's directing this towards you, Chappy. He's like, hey guys, I thought it was a beards only channel. Chappy doesn't have a beard, but Chappy has something that I don't have, and that's a full head of hair.
I'll take it down in a second, but it's just easier. What I lack here, Gene, or here rather, it makes, I don't know, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you can let me know, but I can certainly bring down the luscious locks if that'll make you feel better.
Well, yeah, and then just wrap them around your chin,
Exactly. We'll do.
And then I like this though, John. That's why I had to do it. Nice to see you, Chappy, my favorite hippie of all time, brother. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
it
what I
right there.
like to hear. I'll take it. I'll take it.
And then and then some more comments. Okay, so I know where we are. I'm going to leave it with learn me something. We'll come back to that as we continue on. All right, so Chappy.
Yep.
I saw you posted a bunch of stuff there in the chat, just in case someone's not reading the chat. And you've been on before, but if you would be so kind, sir, just share with everybody a little bit about yourself and your program again, if you don't mind.
Not at all. Thank you. So I lead maintenance and building efforts on the Arizona National Scenic Trail with just veterans and military families. And that's a really, fast way of summarizing that this is a healthy and holistic experience for those people that come out with us, that provides opportunities to regain some of what we experience in the military together, namely the camaraderie, those connections. We equate what we do on the trail together as sort of like the battle, and then when we come back we have a chance to talk about coming back to the fire and just reliving some moments for the day. But really it's about taking our community and placing them in an environment that could be very foreign, but it also could be very comfortable. And I can talk to stories at length, but there's two spectrums really, that what I see is the ones that, especially the ones that the grunts out there, the Army and Marine Corps, the ones that when you hear the word camping, they say hell no. They've experienced what that was like in the military, and they don't want to relive any of that. And then I have to readjust that thinking about no, we're gonna compared to that, we're gonna go glamping. But there is an element of resiliency into this as well, because we're not just going out there to relax. There is an element to that in the evenings, but it's really about you're volunteering your time and your body to a cause, which makes it so unique and amazing. So we have those individuals and their family members who are obviously a component to the therapeutic element, because who better to continue that mission off the trail than the family members, and to see the children and spouses interact with the service member on the trail. I've heard, again, just miracle stories, about how they have better connections at home, how the children want to go outside more, which is really, as a dad, that speaks volumes, because that's really what I'm trying to do within my own house. So I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that's the program in a nutshell. And I just want to, really briefly touch on why I'm such a gear nerd, why I'm so honored to be here with Mark today, is because I have always loved, and, even as a kid, like I always wanted, go back to like Rambo and the field knife with the built-in compass and, the survival cord and all the things inside of it. My dad, I love him dearly, he's still around, but he loves pockets. So every time we'd go out together, he just have all kinds of stuff jammed in pockets. So I've had this, in my mind, almost indoctrination of like having things with you when you go outside all the time. So there's that's a little bit of it. And I think that carried on before I became this hippie as some, who was it? Was it John? Yeah.
Well, John started it,
yeah.
And then I'll get to it later. Yeah.
Okay. Well, John, thank you. Well, that was a transformation in and of itself. Like I went into the military, of course, as a photographer, and I don't know, that the camping and nature element of my my time was pretty much nil unless it was work related. So for some reason I wanted to go into medicine, so I got my ENT certification, and then that literally took me away from it even further, because it was like anyone that works in medicine, especially in emergency medicine, it is a tough job, all encompassing. And when you have time off, it's really, really hard to find that motivation to want to go outside and climb a mountain. So where my love of gear came in was when I started my journey with the National Outdoor Leadership School up in Wyoming. Wanted to become a guide, wanted to guide people in the wilderness, because I always felt like after the military, and I've talked about this on your show and I've talked about it several times, but really the pathway to healing for me was nature. It was going outside, usually into the backyard mountains that we have here, the Cadalinas and the Rincon mountain ranges, and just getting lost for a little while, sometimes to my detriment, sometimes not, but it was always great to have that access. And so I was like, how can I do this for a living? So I, did all the research and everything, and I was already currently in college for something else. And I decided to go on this harebrained, I'm going to guide people. I'm going to become a guide, even though I had no experience really up to that point. But what I learned through that semester long experience, which was like literally, I don't know how many days we spent in the field, but it was almost probably 3/4 of that time. There was a little bit of instruction in class, but most of it was outside, where you're pitching a tent with your tent mates. Essentially, you're learning how to cook with each other. You're learning how to be an expedition. And so this expeditionary mindset was like so intriguing, and it just made me want to do this even more. And so I always noticed, though, looking around the campfire, some really awesome backpacks and stove systems, and the technical gear and the clothing, and you name it. I was like hooked at that point. And when I got out, of course, not got out, but when I was done with my time at Knowles trying to find work, it was extraordinarily difficult, bit off way more than I can chew. And it was like this dreamer in me who thought that was going to work out, but the love of the gear didn't change. So, bummed around for a little bit, but then I actually got on as the outreach coordinator for our local REI. And yeah, thanks, Mark. It's product placement. It's good. I don't even know. I should have that. Anyway, I loved the gear that much that I wanted to outfit people for a living. And so think about at the corporate level, but also like at the time, REI wasn't quite where it is now. And there was a lot more niche items and, boutique brands. And, of course, being a state that has a major through hike, there was always people coming in looking to outfit themselves. And so it was like this awesome experience and time where I got to go out and test a lot of gear and then talk about it essentially with customers. And then when they would come in with, an aspiration or a goal, it was awesome to be able to fit the gear to the job. But, always we were, as a company, and I appreciate at the time what it stood for. I don't think so much now. I'm not going to, talk too much trash about REI, but there was an education component to it. Like we were actually tapped to teach classes at our local REI, whether it was map and compass skills or, how to use a Garmin when that became a thing. Basic rock climbing skills, backpacking, orienteering, all of it. Right. So it was like this great, you go downstairs, you get the gear and you come upstairs and we teach you how to use it. And sometimes it was rare, very rare, but we got to go out and actually, do these immersive experiences. So that's the gear portion. And I think that carried over when I started this program. It's been we're going into our 5th season now. So we're into our 5th year of this program, which blows my mind every time I think about it. But all that knowledge, all of the experience I had up to that point is what has been able to really, I think, make us successful. And, we've had very few injuries out in the field together, because not only do I lead experiences that are more car camping focused, I actually have a backpacking element within our programming as well, when we go out unsupported with all of our kit on our back, which is, incredible as well. But that is only possible because of the time I've invested in those experiences and utilizing the gear.
I hope we really can actually delineate and talk about those differences, because I mean, to me, I didn't even think about just even though you and I kind of mentioned it, I figured it'd come up, but I didn't even think about, even if you're glamping, that still needs to be addressed. Like, you can make some very serious mistakes just because you think you have a vehicle that's going to carry everything for you, because you kind of get lazy, or again, you don't know what you don't know. But I want to circle all the way back, if I can, real quickly. When you were first starting to talk about, what you do and just that, how nature has that holistic element to it, especially if you have the veteran, and maybe it doesn't work this way all the time, but I kind of sense that what you were kind of getting at, I get the sense that it happens more often than not. The family being with the veteran out in that environment, and how that helps bring them closer together. And I would be willing to bet that you would probably see a lot more of that. Like, hey, Dad, let's go. I see you kind of smiling. Can you add to that just a little bit? Because that was a very fascinating piece. I had forgotten about, well, yeah, it's not just the vet. A lot of these guys and gals are bringing out their spouses and their loved ones with them.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's like, it's an amazing piece to see, what they're bringing from their service in the military, because, it could have been like mine, being a Navy guy, hardly any time in a, land exercise of some kind. It was always on a ship. So I can imagine that they're bringing some of those skills that they've learned in the service, and if they're, I mean, I get a lot of retirees, or retired age military members too. So we're talking like, first Iraq engagement, all the way back to like Vietnam. So like it vastly, like, some guys just come out with a bedroll and, very little, the clothes on their back. And, even though I put out a list, which I'm happy to share with everyone, but I feel like as much as I can front load them with information about where we're going, how to get there, what the weather is going to entail, and a little bit about the project and the cultural and the history aspects of it. And then I give them like a gear list that's one page, and it basically, has, trail maintenance specific items on there, but a lot of it, I asked them to go review the 10 essentials. And I don't know how much you've talked about that. I'm sure ad nauseum everyone is somewhat familiar with that, but I think that's a great place to start for anyone, because it really, I think, dials in what you should be taking with you all the time, not just, for a specific type of engagement, but every time, which, almost gives you a muscle memory aspect where, the backpack that you have, it has, you have everything you need in it, or whatever you're using it, whether, I love your hip packs, like however you want to, organize your kit, and however it makes sense. And of course, people have bodily issues, shoulder injuries, so the hip packs are great for that. But if you just have a ruck that you just know that if you're going out for a quick 2 mile hike with the dog, or if you want to go actually out for a day, in my opinion, and this is coming from the search and rescue side of me as well, I didn't mention, but they always said train with the pack that you're going to go rescue in, whatever it is, however long the hike is, and that gets you used to all of your gear as well. And then obviously you're almost like looking for things to do even in an urban environment, to just sit down and, like you're doing right now, you have bust out the stove and have a cup of coffee, or your kid gets injured and you bust out the first aid kit and you're like, okay, let's put the tourniquet on. No, I'm just joking, but you know what I mean. Like you want to use the stuff that you have in there. Hopefully that's the end goal.
Well, yeah, it's not that you're hoping your kid wipes out, but you're also hoping your kid is normal enough that he or she's out there doing something where there might be a boo-boo. And it's funny you just mentioned that, because I think it was last year, somebody who has one of our med kits actually had a story like that. Little Jimmy wiped out on the skateboard type of thing, and everybody's freaking out. And the guy's like, yeah, don't worry, zip, zip, zip. And it's all done. And so what I like about, your program is because I could see, this is obviously just speculation. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but I could see a lot of vets, especially to your point, if they were like ground pounders or artillery, all the things. So I won't even do the red legs and all that. But if you were, in the military and you spent, and your MOS, your job had you out in the field quite a bit, well, you're going to pick up some of these fieldcraft skills. They may be specifically taught to you. You're going to look at gear differently. And I could see, Chappy, to your point, that spouse now being there with their family gives them a chance to like, hey, I wasn't just a jarhead, or I wasn't this, like these are the, or it isn't just all, like you said, John Wick or Rambo. Like there's all these other things that we have to do and learn. And now I get to be there with you and show you guys some of this. So maybe you better understand that dad might be crazy, but it's not for these reasons, type of thing.
That's great. Yeah. And really, and like, they could be learning the same skill at the same time, which is also beautiful to watch, like where they're just so willing to learn and be in that environment that they just give themselves over to it and just trust the process. And then watching them, the kids connect, and it's incredible. Now we actually, not to go on, too much promoting here, but we also have a youth side of our programs for the Arizona Trail Association called Seeds of Stewardship. And they have an ambassador program for high school age kids. and they go out and they, do what, more skill set training, where they do, it's a naturalist, kind of survivalist, but also cultural significance of, the section of the trail that they go and learn on. And the intent is to obviously create little ambassadors that are going to protect and preserve our natural world, right? Our trail. So I mentioned this program because one of our he won our award this year for his outstanding stewardship and conservation efforts. He brought his son to several events, and they were, to my mind, the first ones that were the hardest for this kid. He barely interacted. He was like, just typical, kid. What do you like to do? Video games, I guess. So, typical, and no one, made him feel bad for it. We were like, oh, cool. What kind of games you like to play? And then, it opened up doors for him. And on the trail, we treated him like an equal. And then he came back and we, thanked him for his service almost. Right. And so you multiply that by, maybe he's been on at least 6 or 7 events, which is incredible to me, but he has now earned his hard hat, which we have different colors for based on the amount of volunteer hours you give to the trail. He's earned his orange helmet, which is the highest that you can go, which is 250 volunteer hours, which is amazing for a teenager. And now he's not only coming with me next weekend and his dad again to a trail event, but he's also part of that ambassador program. So like, based on introducing him to this with our vets group, he is now wanting to pursue more. And I think even beyond that, it sounds like he's going to be looking to, if he doesn't work within the environmental industry, if you will, whether it's conservation or whatever, he is going to have an appreciation and love for it. And I think that is just as important as, maybe even, pursuing a career in it.
Oh, this is going to be again, maybe this is a CLS After Dark. I already can see this could, we got a lot to talk about. All right. Hey, let me just, as I always kind of get caught up with the chat, just give everybody a shout out. Learn me something. This is where we left off. He was talking about the mud flap. I'm actually going to do another standalone video. I've taken some advice from a bunch of you great men and women who've reached out to me and willing to share it. One of the things is, maybe we swear too much on this channel, and maybe that's the algorithm doesn't like that, whatever. But this is another kind of comment right here. It's like, I do need to start doing a lot more of like 30-second to 3-minute videos, and I could do that on the mud flap. So thanks, Learn Me Something, for pointing that out. Husky Bunch is here saying made it. And then we've got Robert Leal. Good evening, gentlemen, from FIUPD. I don't know what that is, and I don't want to assume the PD is police department, but Robert, good evening to you as well, sir. Then this is what, why I wanted to go back, because, there's always,
I love Gene.
Yeah, Gene's like, Chappy, love you, man. My hair is short now, but he rocked a ponytail when he was younger. As Gene says, our favorite hippie, and then he goes, but in parentheses, and you got to give, speak the truth, with the exception, of course, of Cheech and Chong, right? That's, I think those are the world's hippies right there. So, and then now going back to REI, John here saying he just dropped a Benjamin there today. That's kind of funny,
easy to do.
But I just wanted to kind of just real quickly echo. I was never a big REI guy, but they were around. But I remember when, and I'm not joking, boys and girls, this would easily be 20 years ago, and earlier. But Chappy, I remember them being more like what you described. It was more of workshops and showing you how to do this. And it was a different kind of, and I don't know, maybe they are still like that in other places, but I did notice that had dissipated quite a bit. And I think that seemed to be kind of a trend for a little while. I don't know if it's like that in brick and mortar anymore. But that's what we're trying to do here, is share knowledge and help people through and show them how to use the gear and stuff. So I like how you said that. Now, here's a very specific question for you. Here, I'm going to come back to it. Let me just get caught up on the other ones. Gene was giving John some shout outs. Those guys are making each other blush. And then, okay, so John's got 2 questions. Let me go to this one first, Chappy. He wants to know, how often do you guys go out? His boys are growing older now, and he he's saying, I think he's contemplating coming out their spring break of next year and maybe do one of your courses or something. So can you add to that? Like, is that a weekly thing, a monthly thing? How does that work for you?
Yeah, great question. And really, goes back to, how small our organization is. The Arizona National Scenic Trail is 800 miles long, which it always blows my mind when I say it out loud. And for that distance of trail to be maintained and managed, there are only about 10 full-time employees that work for the Arizona Trail Association. So I'm lucky enough to be one of them. And really, it's me running the vets program, the events, the fundraising, the outreach, all of it. So there's only so much me. I wish I could replicate myself or find some funding to hire another individual, but obviously I'd want to pay him better than what I'm making now. So if any kind of angel donors out there that are listening, please give.
Hey, I am
Anyway,
the new product I'm working on is like a duplicator, so maybe it'll work on humans.
Please, yeah, sign me up. Yeah, take my money. I need it. We all do, right? Well, it's awesome that you brought this up, Mark, because I just mentioned the annual meeting. We just came back from that last weekend, where we got to share all of our accomplishments from 2024. And just alone from last year, we usually are about between 100 to 120 participants a year just for the program, which doesn't seem like a lot, but you got to remember, this isn't just like a one-off or one day kind of event, which are great, but they're very surface oriented. The work that we're doing extends across multiple days. We're talking 4 to 5 day experiences, so much more immersive. So think about all the retreats, I guess, if you're thinking about veteran specific programs in the outdoors. 100+ person for one program director, if you will, is pretty, it's not, I wouldn't say it's impressive because we can always do more, but it shocks me every time I look back on the numbers. But just by the numbers, I run about those car camping experience, I do about 9 to 10 a year, and then between 8 to 10 of those backcountry experiences, and it usually equates to about 1 to 2 a month. And then we take a brief hiatus in the wintertime and then a longer one in the summer, because anyone that's been out here in the Southwest, you cannot be outside no matter where you really live unless you're really high in the mountains and you got those beautiful pines and oaks to shelter you. Even at altitude, it can be pretty nuts as far as just dealing with the heat, the wildfires, and the monsoon rains. Yes, sir.
Just I want you to be able to come back to that, because that goes into gear and the mindset and the thought. It's a different environment. So, if you are going to be out there, unless you have that, big army support group behind you with a water buffalo and all that kind of stuff, you really have to use this tool and figure out what you're doing. So please, let's remember that and come back to that, because the desert isn't just the desert. There's the high desert, there's the Mojave, right. The Mojave, all that stuff. So
so yeah, just to go back to the impact, we about 100 and I think we did 114 volunteers last year, 104 veterans and 10 dependents. So whether it's a child or a spouse, which equated to almost 2,400 2,400 volunteer hours. Which anyone that works in this field, they know that about one volunteer hour is roughly $26 and some change. That's about 60, almost 67 grand that we saved in contracting throughout the state. And then this one surprised me, and then I'll shut up. But we did about 45.5 miles of trail as far as impacted, whether we put a pick to it, a pruner, or whatever. We worked on tread, we worked on the corridor, or if it was just drain maintenance or something, or just making the trail wider. 45.5 miles of that 800-mile stretch, and that was all over the state. And then this one broke my heart a little bit, because I'm a dad, and I of course have to be the one. Well, I get to be the one to be in the field, doing this job. And we spent over 60 days in the field. So that's 2 months of 2024 that were spent on the ground, in the desert somewhere. So as much as that, that bigger picture goes, like, obviously it's still not enough. We need to do more. We need to have multiple events going at the same time. But if that answers that question, John, about how often we try and get outside.
Hey, so I'm going to take his follow-up question and let's use that to spring it back into maybe, I don't know if we're going to ever be truly gear specific. I think it's going to be more the thought. And that's why I wanted to do the high desert, the regular desert. But John's other question was, hey, is this just out walking a trail? Well, I'll pop it up and I'm paraphrasing it, but he's like, hey, what does that really mean? Trail maintenance. Are we just walking on the trail? Are we, repairing trails? And you kind of started hitting on this. He's thinking about blowdowns. Yeah, just think about all those natural events. But Chappy, you want to address that and then maybe use that as the springboard to start talking about, this is what we do. And then here's the type of gear you need. Again, there's the maintenance side, but we're out in the woods for this period. So you got to have this other stuff too, or at least be thinking about it.
That's a great segue into what we were talking about earlier, because what really defines the maintenance, just like water is so crucial to have with you all the time and to be able to go effectively from one water source to another. That's exactly the contender that we have on the trail. So our monsoon season brings sometimes buckets of rain, and think about hard pack caliche and dirt that literally just washes trails away, or it can, especially if you have like a flash flood. Our model for trail building is, we want to make sure it's sustainable. So we're looking at a 50-year trail. So however we're making that trail, we're building it to a certain standard so it stays within those regulations, or hopefully, low maintenance, right? So when we're going out together, we're looking at how to improve those. We can actually see where the water is going and then go, okay, we need to build another drain there. We need another, or it needs to be wider, or this section is getting washed away. Let's reinforce that. Let's do some rock armoring. And sometimes it's building. So it's like the design and then the implementation as well, which is incredible to watch as well.
And I just kind of was geeking out because when I had my first break in service, the job I had was with the Minnesota Conservation Corps, and we were building the Lake Superior hiking trail. So as you were talking, Chappy, again, how the water, and if you've never been in these different environments, you might not get what he's saying, but water runoff and absorption and how that, soil erosion, very different in the desert than it is in maybe, like the Midwest or even the East Coast or down south will be completely different, X, Y, and Z. So I like how you said that. And I was going to say, do you guys also ever do building? Because if you've got an area, that it's going to constantly be washed out, I mean, that would seem to me that that's a fight that's not worth having. So get a culvert in there or do something. Do you guys do that kind of work too?
Absolutely. So it's funny, like there's a lot of areas that, are more front country where it would allow us to add, artificial infrastructure, but a lot of it is super, super remote. So we have to just figure out how to deal with that. But you're right about, one thing, Mark, is like, you can only dress up a pig so well. And some of these trails are all interconnected throughout this.
I only can look this good.
Sweater.
This is the best it's going to look.
The trails, the trails are like, they were all pieced together. They were their own separate systems. However many miles long. This trail wasn't built to spec from the original. It was just basically pieced together to make it one long through hike. So different qualities of design throughout the whole state. And we're still addressing things. Since the inception was in the 80s, if I remember right. And then the trail became a National Scenic Trail in 2012. So what our job is now as the organization is to, maintain this, make sure that it stays open and it stays, hikeable, rideable, and, somewhat equinable. But if there isn't a section where we can do a reroute to make it better or more sustainable or more scenic, we're always looking to improve it all the time. So, we actually had a great project. The VETS program specifically had about a mile section that we got to go back to several times to build by hand. And, it may not seem like, a mile is that far with trail building by hand. Usually there's actual excavators that come out and do a lot of this work, but to do it by hand in the hard packed soil, the rocky soil, and to make it fun and make it flow and make it scenic. Like it's an art form. And so like to be able to give that gift to the vets that came out was an incredible experience. If anyone ever gets a chance to come down to Southern Arizona, take the trail outside of the town of Patagonia and give me a holler. Let me know what you think.
Hey, on that note, that was just a great, I don't know if you saw some of the comments, but let's keep going with that because there's 2 comments I need to read off. And this is going to get, again, back in, into the gear, but it's also going to be, yeah. And look, boys and girls, if we don't talk a whole lot about gear tonight, that's all right, because I'll just give you my personal bias. Chappy's got a ton of experience, and I want you to hear his experience so he can share that with you. But at the end of the day, there is no cookie cutter. And I know that's going to piss people off. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Like, there is no one cookie cutter to any of this stuff, right? Like, is some gear better designed than others? Sure, under certain circumstances. There are circumstances where if you go back to see some of the previous episodes where I even used the Carver matrix, a military thing, to talk about gear, there are environments where a machete is going to work way better than a hatchet. And there's other environments where a machete, yeah, it'll still kind of work, but a hatchet, because you can do so much more with it, is going to be the better tool. So if we don't get into too much of the specific tools, it is kind of what it is. I think it's more of a mindset. And then Chappy, so that was my way to set you up here for, your next go of it. The question. So Gene was asking specifically, like, what kind of tools are you humping in? And I think you're already kind of see, is that the more remote backcountry, the more glamping? Are they doing just maintenance? Are they doing, a new cut through? So the tools are going to vary a little bit. I'll give you the chance here, but then Learn Me Something specifically is asking, he's doing a desert survival course in your neck of the woods during the month of June. Do you have any helpful hints for that time of year? Are there any pitfalls to avoid? So Chappy, if you could take Learn Me Something's question and combine it with John's question, I think that might be just a great way to encompass both your regional specific issues, which should help people understand that it's not a cookie cutter, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Great setup, dude. Like I think it varies, right? Like generally going to the tools part of this, I'm going to start there because I feel like that's,
are
that's
you going to
a great
show
way.
stuff off?
Yeah, I was gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, no,
So,
this kind of, hey, Chappy, this freaks some people out a little bit, but can I bring you full screen? You won't see anybody but you, but I think the audience will see your gear better then. Can I do that?
Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna bring you full screen. All right. All right, your full screen. Go ahead, Guy.
All right. So I don't have a lot of, I mean, like I don't want to like get too deep into like all of this, but obviously I want to shout out one of the best tools that you can have for a trail builder, especially if you're going through really, really overgrown areas, is like lopper and a saw. And I'm going to start here because this begins my love story with Mr. Lane, because I was looking for an effective solution to mount to mount this bad boy. This is the Gone Boy from Silky, and I also have a big boy pouch from Mr. Lane as well, because it's always being utilized on the trail. So you guys can see, I have a Mystery Ranch pack here, and I have it mollied on the side here. And this is, Mark knows I have a love affair with multicam Arid because it's just a really, really sexy pattern. But as sexy is this pouch. And so like having your tools accessible on the trail is so important to be able to be an effective team. So to have that right there. And then I wish I would have grabbed more tools, but
Chappy, can I interject one second real quickly?
Sure.
Sorry, let me just change the view. Hey, and boys and girls, don't forget, Chappy is talking about something very specific right there. So for you, maybe that outer pouch or that other item is going to be something completely different for your environment. Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. So that's going to vary, right? That's why this is not a cookie cutter.
Great point. Because I could even see that being, a versatile pouch for, even like if someone likes to pack a fly rod or something like that, where you're wanting to make it like more fishing oriented, like it's got that look to it. But anyway, McLeod, or a rake of some kind. If you're familiar with the Nupla fire rake, that's a huge tool for the trail worker. That's probably as important as the second one, which is a pick of some kind. And we use Pickmatics that usually either have an adze end on one side, or adze is the more axe style, and then we have ones that it's more of a scoop, if you will. And so having those two accessible, usually they're in our hands, the backpack on, and I usually unbuckle that pouch so that I can just reach back, grab the saw, I usually have another set of loppers on my other opposing side. And so I'm using that. And of course, if I'm trying to stay fast and stay focused, I'm going to go back to, we can, I don't want to jump around too much. I want to make sure, let me go back. So the desert survival course from Learn Me Something there, I would say your most effective tool, or resource, critical resource out here in the desert is water, and to be able to stay an effective survivalist, you have to be able to stay hydrated. And I know that's like a camelback, thirst or die, or whatever it's called, drink or die. Like, it's so true out here to be able to stay hydrated. So having something that's accessible while you're on the trail. I'm a big fan of a bladder system with a hose. I know you're doing desert survival, so they may not have, you may be boiling your water out of a cup or a tin or whatever, but to stay hydrated and to make sure that you have a container to keep it in, your clean water, your potable water, that is probably the best, advice I have, especially in June when you're coming. It's going to be hot as hell already. And you want to make sure that you are absolutely staying on top of your hydration game.
Okay, not to, and I hope this doesn't come across as I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts, because I know a lot of people who think the desert, and they don't think fire, like oh, it's the desert. Well, it gets super fucking. Oh, see there, I'm not supposed to be swearing during these. I got to see if that helps the algorithm. Hey, YouTube, that was only just the beginning. That's not the actual full word, so that doesn't count. But it gets it gets very cold at night in the desert.
Yep.
And and I'll just give a personal story. One of the coldest times I've ever been in my life, and it was 16 below at 7:30 in the morning. What it was at 6 or 5:30, I didn't notice, but it was at it was 16 below. That's not even that cold, right? But this is not kill me. This is not the coldest I've ever been. So it was in a desert. That's the coldest I've ever been in my life. Yeah. Was in a desert. So Chappy, fire, and then you just brought up, because again, hydration, stay hydrated or die, plain and simple, right? So do you have a preference? Like, again, this kind of goes into tools and pitfalls to avoid. Is it water purification tabs? Is it boiling your water to purify? Is it a press or a filtration system, or is it whatever you have, as long as it gets the job done?
It's a great question, because honestly, like, that was probably the one of the most played with gadgets, or at least where I constantly was playing and upgrading. It was water filter systems, because out here, it's either really it's fine. It's the water sources are flowing and they're clean, and then you have you have to filter from especially on the trail, from cow troughs and stagnant areas as well. So you want to make sure that obviously you want to continue your journey without getting sick or picking up some sort of nasty. But yeah, so I think I love the smaller systems for sure when you're backpacking, but they tend to be unless you're really adamant about cleaning them after you come out of the field and maintaining them, they can get gunked up pretty fast. So I would say the hardier systems that are heavier work better, I think, for the long term. So I'm a big fan, especially if I'm backpacking with my Fox Squad, which is the team that goes out in the backcountry. I bring 3 filters with me, and then whatever they want to bring, but I have 3. So I have the Katadyn Hiker, which uses a ceramic. It's a paper filter, but it's a paper charcoal mix. So it gives a little bit of the taste, but it also filters out the nasties. And then we use a gravity filter at camp with that same type of filter. So
if you don't mind, just real quickly. So again, and we're talking about this, and you could do a whole subject. We could do a whole 1 hour just on this if you're not familiar with it. That first filter is a scoop and drink and filter on the go, right? He could, if it's like the Katadyns I have, I literally could come up to a puddle, fill it up, and I can drink it from that point forward. It's already filtering as I'm drinking. And now he's going into a different type of unit, which would be better for a more static, the base camp. So I just had to throw that in there. So in case somebody didn't know what a Katadyn, and because we already had, Gene just said Grail. right? So a Grail's another kind of
Grail's great.
example that, yep.
Yep. So that's another press style filter, right? So you're actually actively doing some sort of filtering where you're pushing it through another filtration, or you're letting it drip through or whatever. But the intention obviously is getting clean water as quickly as possible. And obviously it's a critical piece of gear. So you want to make sure that is staying as maintained as possible. But what am I missing? What are we going to talk about?
Then you
water.
went to the base camp with the gravity filters.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's more like a Sawyer style. That's what always comes to my mind when I think of gravity ones, are like the Sawyer filters.
A lot of companies make them now. It's really about, I like to look at it, that someone gave me this advice, and I'm sure you've said this, Mark, or at least, someone in this circle has talked about it, but making each piece of gear, a force multiplier. So if you have a piece of gear that can double as something else, that's always going to be, something that I'm thinking about myself. So having two separate filters for two separate things that do two separate things, but the efficiency is also part of this as well, and the ease of use. And while they may not be the lightest weight system, they're durable, and that's what's great. And if one breaks, I have a spare, right? So I'm thinking about these, especially when I'm going out with others. But I always, like I said, you hike what you bring. So bringing these things gets you, if you find a water source. Sometimes this might be a little gross, but sometimes after a rain, we have out here in the desert, we have washes, which is basically our urban drain system. And when it's not raining, which is 99% of the year, they're just basically like super highways of deserts that run. They're like veins that run through the city. And so a lot of times when we do get rain, these washes will fill up with stagnant water and stuff like that. So sometimes I'll just take the filter out there and use it, or show someone if they're interested in learning how to use this, if you needed to in the city, where to look for these water sources, where they their best chances of getting water are going to be. Anyway, I think if I could anything, I guess I'm going on a tangent, but the water is probably the most crucial piece to be able to survive in the desert. Everything else, all of your essentials, if you will, your shelter, your fire, to stay warm and to eat, like that, those are secondary, in my opinion, to water.
I'm going to bring up a couple questions for you, but I was wondering if that was going to come up. So I like how you just did shelter, because it would be secondary, because you can find shelter out in the desert. I mean,
absolutely,
you literally can. But a good shelter is going to have, again, to Chappy's point, it's going to have multiple functions. It could keep you warm, but in the desert, it's going to keep that sun off of your. Again, I'm only one of three colors. I'm white, red, or peeling. That's all I am. Man, that'll kill me quicker than shit out there, and I know that, right? So sleeves down, having a shelter, even hell, and even keeping Chappy. I forgot about it, and it just came back. The desert wind. I mean, that can just ravage you, right?
Yeah.
So
Springtime, man, it's the worst in the spring. But yeah, depending on where you are, it cuts right through you. And going back to your point, like earlier you made about how cold the desert can be, and when you are truly exposed and you don't have any trees around you to insulate you, which is again, a lot of the state is not covered in forest. So you feel that cold a little bit more. And then of course the time of year and where you are in the state, if you're higher in elevation, it's going to get worse. But yeah, I've been in some windstorms that have ripped tents, for sure, have ripped tarps, have blown gear all over to hell and gone. So having a plan about, it's a good point about preparation too. Like maybe it's my OCD, but I like knowing where everything is at any given time and how to access it. So if I'm in my tent, I'm not just throwing my pack in there and okay, good night. Like I'm strategically placing things should I need them throughout the night, or preparing for that, during my normal setup. So that way I don't have to look for this in the middle of the night, or if I need something in an emergency, especially like a first aid kit, I don't want to have to be digging around in my backpack in order to find it.
And people can give the military a hard time, and some sergeant majors and first sergeants do take it too far, but knowing where all of those items are within your ruck, right? Having an organized ruck, or what's on your body. This pouch is this, and it always is. And, this pouch, or, this thing is near the bottom, because if you need it, You can pull all the other crap out because you don't, but you might need it. So it's worth carrying, weight to cube and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important. And then that kind of is going over to some of the questions I want to bring over to you. Excuse me. Hey, look, if we go a little over an hour, but like, I think everybody's very interested in the agua right now.
Good.
Good man. So let's kind of bring back over to water. So we had Gene talking about a Millbank bag. And I actually think John talked about a Millbank bag, Gimli, in one of the loadouts that he's helped us with. And then, so here's the two questions I want to bring it back to you. So we'll kind of combine these if you're willing to do it, Chappy. John wants to know generally, how far do you go between water supplies and how much do you carry with you on those type of events? And I think that could vary. And then, but this kind of ties into it. So I want to bring those together as a question. Learn me something saying for his course, 2% iodine. So will be used as one of the methods for water disinfection. Is it okay to use the 2% iodine with the potassium iodide? What is nascent iodide? Hey, learn me something. Might be a little unfair because I barely even pronounce that word, and I know what that word means, but so nascent iodine, having issues finding plain iodine. Well, so that kind of goes into water purification tablets. And then, to your point, and to Gimli's point, how much water you're carrying and do you have water sources or do you have water pre-stage? I mean, again, we're kind of coming into water is very important, right? Obviously, water everywhere and not a drop to drink is not a solution when you're in the desert. So.
No. So great questions. I wanted to go back up. I think John asked, how many liters are we taking with us? And that's, minimum 3 throughout, for the day. If you want to bring more, I always encourage, because excuse me, unless you're acclimated to this environment, this arid country we're in, you can go through easily like 5 to 6 liters of water on a typical workday if you're not, used to it. And some people have medical conditions, they just need to hydrate more. So I would say to make sure that while I bring 3 liters in, don't take that as a a hard and fast rule. That's just what works for most of us. So yeah, figure that out. Go and play and see what you're consuming in any given day on the trail.
Well, and don't forget, just real quickly.
Yeah.
So again, and I like where Chappy was going. So more important than the gear, honestly, in my opinion, is your honest assessments, whatever. Just think of that weight. A 5-gallon water jug is 40 pounds. A quart of water is 2 pounds. Have you even hiked? Like what Chappy just said. How much have you even hiked? Can you handle a 40-pound rucksack? If you're just the guy carrying water, or can you even, what does 4 quarts, a gallon of water feel like, if you think about it, 2 canteens on a side and then maybe a big bladder inside. And somebody already made a comment, pre-filter your water to save your water.
Absolutely.
So you can do, you can do some of that. That's a great point, Snowshoe Dave. So, but I just kind of wanted to bring it around. Don't forget, this stuff is all weight though, too, right? It'll weigh a lot. So you've got to be kind of prepared for it as well. If you're going to go out, even and back to the kind of veteran and the, the family and using the wilderness to keep our mental state and just be better human beings. You do you, but like my suggestion would be, if this is your first time in the woods with the family, don't think you're going to go walk 20 miles and all you've got is one of these.
Don't.
Yeah.
Great point. And and just to go back to like the weight issue as well, like I've tried, the canteens and bottles and whatnot, but like I said, I'm a fan of the bladder because of, it may not, I know everyone says it's the taste, it's the plastic taste. I get it. It doesn't necessarily get better, but I need fast hydration, and I don't want to sometimes have to go digging for it or have a weird, pocket holster to grab that water to hydrate. It's right there. And to more to the point, what Mark was saying, bladders carry better because it's centered with your spine. If you're, most of the time it's centered with your pack, unless you're carrying it on your lumbar, so that it's not going to, throw your weight off, which can cause fatigue and sometimes just general aches and pains, especially as we age. So I think accessibility and comfortability are big in how you carry water with you. What was
Hey, I
it?
just want to add
Yeah,
before, and then come to the comments though. Look, man, it's water. That's what you're concerned about. You're not concerned about what it tastes like. Like
right,
water in its best state doesn't have any taste, right?
right.
So lickies and chewies, we see some comments about salt packs. I mean, like, again, and I think we're going to start doing more of these things because a salt pack is probably something, just a little packet of salt. Don't ever throw those away from McDonald's or wherever. If you go to those places, keep that shit. Maybe have that
Yeah.
part of, your equipment, because if you're in that environment, you don't want to be overdoing it, but if you're not getting enough, you do need to replenish that salt. If you're sweating a lot, electrolytes, but these are all the little things you can add to, because, to Chappy's point, so what? The water tastes like plastic, or the water tastes like this. It's freaking water. It's going to keep you alive. And that's what's more important than anything,
If you want to stay natural and go to the salt idea, which I love too, I learned a long time ago that lime juice actually is a great additive, a natural additive to your bladder, because it kind of gets rid of that plastic taste. But lime, naturally has electrolytes in it as well. The citrus, the potassium, and I would obviously recommend too. If you are a electrolyte person, have that pack handy, and then you can slam one of those and then just chug on that water, but or mix it or whatever to, if it's really because like I said, some of these water sources on the trail are really questionable at times. Which, if you wouldn't mind, Mark, I think there was a question about how much water do we carry between sources, and I'll just answer that really quickly. That the trail has water sources. We typically want to make sure that they're within 20 miles of each other, and I know that seems like a crazy amount, but it's really not, because you can go 20 miles with 5 or 6 liters. Obviously you got to conserve, and maybe you have to hike at a certain time to make sure you maximize your hydration efforts. But like in the desert, you have, sometimes you have water sources every 5 feet, and then it's like, that saying, feast or famine. And we've actually built rain catches along the trail now, pretty high tech ones. I mean, they look pretty low tech, but they're really awesome, where they're basically collecting water from what little rainfall we have, and then it actually filters into a separate container, which is what the user can come and grab from if they're desperate and hard up for water. um we always do recommend to filter it again before you consume it. But yeah, like it can be, John, it can be within a few, 1 mile or a few miles of your last refill, or you could go 20 miles or so before you get water again. So it's a lot of planning and preparation has to be done if you're planning on doing any distance hiking on the AZT.
Uh, I would play a clip right now. I thought about pulling it up. Just think about the movie Dune. I love me my pop
Yeah,
culture.
I love
I
doing.
actually don't mind the new version. Some of the character or the choices for some of the actors. That's just a personal thing. Whatever. Well, I think this would have been a better person, but overall, I think it's kind of holding to the storyline pretty good. But I was going to throw out, Stilgar. Basically taking
Yeah.
all the water from the Harkonnens, to your point, like, imagine you're on the trail, Chappy's draining the water. Oh, this is dirty water, but it's okay for boiling or making dinner tonight or something. So
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of it is Harkonnen water for sure. But sometimes you have really beautiful riparian areas and constantly flowing water sources. Obviously, the Colorado is the big one, but like we have these little rivers all over the state that we tried, or whoever created these trails. Trails naturally follow water anyway. So I think having water sources already integrated into a trail system is kind of foundational to its design. And then you have hopefully times of year where it's running. And so generally the hiking season for us is like, it starts in March, actually, where it's coming up here. First week of March is the kickoff, and then it usually ends somewhere at the end of May is pushing it. But generally speaking, most folks take between like 30 and 45 days to finish the trail. So they're either going then, or they start up in like September,
yeah.
Or October, depending on if they're going northbound or southbound. But yeah, you have to kind of time everything really, really carefully so that you don't die.
Yeah, that's always a good thing, trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
Hey, We're in an hour, but we'll kind of wrap it up here. We'll go a little bit long, but Chappy, I want to, let you have a couple of comments here at the end as well. And I just want to reiterate to everyone. So yeah, we didn't really actually talk too much about the specific gear. I think the point we're really trying to make is getting out the woods. That's the gear for your brain. That's therapeutic. That's always a great thing. So get out there, be smart about it. It's going to, and I think we kind of just found ourselves talking about other things because at the end of the day, there is no cookie cutter. And if somebody tells you this is the one, well, I mean, maybe there finally will be a MacGuffin. That is the one, the one ring to rule them all. But it just varies and everybody's different. So be smart. Talk to people. Hey, Chappy.
Yeah.
I think this is probably pretty fair to say. Are you okay if somebody wants to, shoot you guys a message and ask some questions? Are you okay with that? Or
absolutely. Yep. Shoot me an email if you're planning on obviously being down here, and I can help support your trek if you're planning on doing any of the trails out here, or if you just want to meet up and have a beer. I'm happy to entertain all comers, man. But yeah, I think just not to get too gushy, but I think knowledge is something that needs to be shared across the board, no matter really what it is. I think that's what makes us, makes us stronger.
And something you said earlier, and this is where I kind of maybe will come over that to wrap it up, as I just realized, we're talking about the gear. And, we've got a handful of comments. I don't even know where we left off. I might overlook one or two people, but I think it's, you can have the brightest, shiniest thing in the world, the best piece of gear. But if you don't know how to use it, and if you've not put it into practice through, at least an intelligently thought out kind of training course, because there is no such thing as just a walk in the woods. The first time, hey, I've got this new ruck. I'm going to put 100 pounds in it. I've never carried a 100-pound ruck before. I don't even know how to lift it to get it on my body, but I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go do a 20-mile out and back where there's no cell phone coverage and it's like 42 degrees outside. Maybe not the best place to do that. That's what I'm trying to get at. Do you want to maybe take that as an outro, or if you want to go someplace else, Chappy, go someplace else? I mean, most of the comments here we've kind of addressed, talking about the weight of water, mineral replacement. We talked about that. Runoff. Certain types of water will clog a filter quickly. So that has to go into your maintenance. And then again, people talking to Millbank bag.
I'm not familiar with it. I'm going to have to look that one up.
I'm not super familiar with them either. And matter of fact, John Dunphy, if you're willing to make a comment in this video after the video is posted, because I'm pretty sure, John, I think you're the person I know who has one. And maybe you could put a comment in there with a link so people could go and see what that is specifically and learn and learn a little bit more. But then we had, I guess, here we go. Your brain is a piece of gear. Use it or lose it. That was Gene. Mm-hmm. Great comment. And then Snowshoe Dave. And then I'll turn it over to you for Gene and Snowshoe's final comments. Snowshoe. Always talk to the locals, rangers, guides for the best information, right? So before you go out in the woods, talk to people who are spending time in those woods, right?
Yeah.
All right. Chappy, where you want to go for an outro here, sir? Do you want to address that, or do you want to go in whatever direction? You take it, man.
All right. I will just say, just to make up for the lack of gear show and tell, I just want to plug this one more time because I just took it off the bag. Yeah, I know. I know. This is how I found Mark, and this is why I love him so much, because there's someone out there that has foresight. I know that he sells this as a saw pouch, and I think that's how I found it, obviously. But this little piece of gear, it's pretty innocuous, right? Like it's probably going to outlive me. Maybe not the saw blade, but this will, and I can throw it on whatever I want. I love this thing. This thing is incredible. If you are using a gomboy or that length of saw, and you're thinking about doing trail work, this thing is an absolute clutch piece of kit. Now, I want to talk about really quick, and maybe this is because, as you know,
boys and girls, I did not bribe him. I did not bribe him. I did not
didn't pay
fly
me.
him.
Not a dime.
Tonight's guests were not flown or put up in a hotel. That was totally.
He
That
did
was
offer
all
me
on
some
him.
cheese, though. I think cheese is
Oh,
on
don't
the
give it
way.
away. That was going to be my outro.
Oh shit! I gave it away. Oh,
Yeah.
I cussed. Oh,
Well,
now
we'll
I'm in
get
trouble.
back. Oh, now we're demonetized. Dang it!
Yep.
Damn it! I guess that gives us
It's
the
now
green light to start.
NC-17. All right. Well, let's have
Yeah.
another beer and keep it going. Then it's going to turn into another
And let's start
CLS
dropping
after
some
dark.
F-bombs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But
man.
I will say, just because I don't know where to go. You guys had great questions. Thank you for John and Gene and Snowshoe Dave, like all the people that asked questions. Love talking about this stuff. I wish we had 12 hours to do a complete like shakedown. But like I said, considering what the show we're on, I just want to make sure that we're giving the love to the man of the hour that makes gear more accessible. And really, this provides me with another talking piece. And I think that's what I want to end on, Mark, is that your gear, people ask me about it. People want to hear the story and how some random guy from Arizona met another random guy that made amazing gear up in Wisconsin. And like, it's an incredible turn of events that connects us. And I think, we're doing this across the country right now, talking about gear and making stronger connections with our community that loves to get outside. And I think that's really, if you guys want to learn more about the program itself, I'm always open. Maybe Mark can share my email and my contact info. But if you're ever down in Arizona and you not only want to come out and experience the trail, but you want to learn how to appreciate it, I think is the term, to appreciate it with a much stronger sense of what the trail actually provides for us, and giving that gift to others by helping to make it more accessible. I think that's really why Mark and I connect so hard, because really, when it comes down to it, the gear, the programs out there for all of our communities that engage in the outdoors, we're all trying to do the same thing. We are all trying to express and extend our love for the outdoors. And that's why Mark and I are bros. So that's all I got, man.
Well, that was a pretty good ending right there. And I just, does that look good right there? Chappy, can you see that?
Looks great. I don't know if they can do links on the chat, but yeah, I believe that is the URL if you want to check it out.
Yep.
We're on socials, even though I hate to say it, it's almost a necessary evil until we can find other ways like this to promote each other and showcase what all the amazing work that we all do. Yeah, please visit us wherever you can. Check out what we're doing. If you can give, please give. If you can't, and all you can do is just attend these kinds of live streams and learn about programs, so that it's always awesome to hear that you learned about a program from another person, whether they've experienced personally or not. That's how I think programs like this one are going to survive and thrive, because we are able to connect each other to those communities and support and lift each other up too, and get that word out. So thanks for sharing that, Mark. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, of course. There was just no way I was not going to do that. Now they figure out how to stop sharing it. And just like, so we can wrap it up. So Gene just answered a question for us though. Straight to your page from here with that.
Thank you, Gene.
Yeah. So thanks, Gene,
Appreciate
for keeping it honest. Really appreciate it. Hey, and I just want to end it on my side and kind of a Minnesota goodbye. I'm going to give Chappy one more chance to make his final comments, but I can't echo enough the sentiment, from the heart. I've never met Chappy in person. I've never had a beer with him person. He's definitely one of the human beings. I just cannot wait until I finally have a chance to meet him in person and have a beer with him in person. Great programs. And the other thing though, too, is like, hey, boys and girls, we don't know what we don't know. Don't be afraid. Be willing to, talk to other people. It's okay. I mean, it is scary, look, I'm not going to lie. Just even doing this stuff you've heard me talk about this recently, kind of opening up. Like, this isn't what my life was like. This is like an anathema to what I'm supposed to be doing. So, but you got to get out of your comfort zone. And when you meet good, like-minded people, and maybe it is a little easier because we're veterans. So we already have that, at some level, we have that weird camaraderie. But the outdoors is another one of those. So here, this is where I'm going to turn it over to Chappy for his final comments. I think the outdoors, Chappy, is one of those, and maybe that's why I love you, and that's why, again, another thing that brought us together, because it's such a duh and or obvious. We can all come together. This can actually heal, bridge gaps, make everything, maybe not make everything better, but allow us an opportunity to be more human with each other, to include with ourselves, right?
Amen. Well, I mean, think about it, Mark. That's where we all started, right? We weren't living in buildings. We were living with the land and in concert with it, and as a result having to work together to survive it, to thrive in it. And so in a way we're kind of like going home in a lot of ways when we talk about this, because I feel like we all have this strong desire and urge to get back to that state of being. So I think when we talk about these things and share our experiences and talk about the cool gear and what kind of amazing shenanigans we get into outside, it all resonates. It all touches a chord within every single human being, I think. And unless you're dead inside, I'll just say it, unless you have no soul, which I'm joking, but I think like we all can find a memory where we were happy outside.
But I don't think that's even if no, it's true. Are you just dead inside? I mean, come on, man, seriously, a sunset. Yeah. So I don't know if he's still watching, but VTech Moonwalker, he made a comment, the other day or a couple episodes ago. If Instagram would allow us this to happen, I think he takes great pictures, and so many other people I follow, I think, take great pictures, but I never see them in my feed anymore. But just even seeing that, right, that in, again, it kind of just helps bridge that gap and reminds you of all these other, beautiful, awesome things. And I don't know if am I going in the right direction, or am I taking it too much in the wrong direction, Chappy?
Oh, dude, keep going.
Well, that's kind of, that was me trying to learn, and break through some of my doors and talk about things that normally would never have been in my vernacular, back in my cool guy days, right? Actually, I think that wasn't my vernacular back then. That's probably why I'm not a cool guy anymore, right? It's like,
I disagree. You are a cool guy. I think this is
my beard is
the new age. Cool. It's your beard's amazing. I think this is the new fire pit, dude. These kind of interactions where we're, even though we have an audience here, I'm looking at this, that we're all sitting around a circle and we're all contributing to I guess we've been stealing the spotlight, but we're talking about something that everyone wants to learn about, and I think that's what we used to do, where we pass the mic to the elder or to the person coming back from an experience, whether it was surviving or hunting, and we listened, we learned. Yes, right. Yep. So this is very akin to that, I think.
Right on. Hey, all right, we're boys and girls. We could keep going, and seriously, we really could. This is like Cialis, but this isn't a Cialis after dark. So just like the drug, you don't know if it's going to go 2 hours or 4 hours. Tonight, we try to keep these at an hour. Thank you so very much to everybody for putting up with the Minnesota goodbye and the shenanigans. But we're not done yet. But wait, there's more. We have to do one last Minnesota goodbye, because there were some good comments, and well, I'm trying to do some new things, and I couldn't have timed this any better. So let me just you started with the folding saw pouch. Now I have to say this, it is my channel. It is kind of a gateway drug. Yeah, we kind of did that intentionally, because you're going to be like, okay, I want more of that. Fix a Nemesis. I didn't get a chance to do it today, Gene. Nemesis, boys and girls, will be an option available on the website. We're finishing we're not finishing. Well, hopefully we're finishing the finishing of the prototyping for the skeleton chassis tomorrow. If you're not over on the gear chat, you've been missing out. I've been having some fun showing the boys and girls over there some of how the process has been going, kind of creating an alter ego over there. I don't even know what it is, but it's just having tons of fun. But Nemesis. So I don't know, Gene, if I can get it on the website tomorrow, but it'll definitely be up by Wednesday. And then one more time, here's where you can find it. Gene confirmed it worked. Yeah. And then, so Steve said we learn something every day. If you have an open mind, yes, sir, we should do. And then there's VTech Moonwalker is still with us. Outdoor life, hike life. Okay. And then we got and then Campfire TV, an Irish goodbye, John Dunphy. It's not even a Minnesota goodbye now. It's an Irish goodbye. But I have to end before I do my outro. I'm going to start doing this. I said I was going to do it. You know, you got to teach yourself, get it into muscle memory, but I'm going to do it tonight. And I'm laughing. There's an inside joke. One of you watching probably already knows what the inside joke is. The rest of you don't, but I'm going to start ending some of these podcasts with some just stupid dad jokes. I mean, really bad. Hopefully you've had a beer during this whole podcast and you'll kind of chuckle and just not throw something at the computer. But I love these dad jokes that somebody sends me. Hey, so I'm going to use, matter of fact, hang on, let me get this off. And we still have Chappy here. Chappy, I'm going to use you as one of my props.
Okay.
Hey, Chappy, what did the buffalo say when he left his boy?
What did the buffalo say when he left his boy?
Bison. Yeah,
that was pretty bad.
That was pretty bad.
That's pretty good.
I'll do one.
Pretty good. Pretty bad. Pretty good.
Yeah, that was really bad. That was really bad. Okay, well, this one isn't quite. I can't use Chappy as a prop for this. One big difference between men and women is if she says smell this, it actually usually smells good. If she says smell this, if your wife if your wife says smell this, it's like a 90-some% chance it's going to actually smell good. Whereas if it's your buddy who says it, it's going to smell like crap. All right, Chappy. Final comments.
Hold on. I'm gonna just chime in and just say I have that 1% lady who is mean, and when she says smell this, I usually hesitate. Just saying.
That's awesome. Hey,
yeah,
tonight's contestants.
She's a keeper.
Tonight's contestants will get a can of Bega cheese.
Yes.
I will be dropping this in the mail tomorrow for Chappy. Everybody who's coming on the
excited.
Loadout Lives is going to get a can of Bega cheese going forward. If you don't know what this is, go do your own research. Bega, I'm willing to take sponsorships. I'm actually giving out cheese that I bought for my own survival scenario. But that's all I got, Chappy. What else you got for us? Oh, somebody just said the bison joke was okay, but the smell this is the best one. All right, thanks, Gene. I appreciate that. We're going to do more of those jokes just to end it on a funny note.
That's good.
Chappy,
I liked it.
as always, God bless you. Thanks for coming on. Really, really appreciate you taking the time away from your family, sharing things. I love your program. I love your attitude. Final comments, anything for everybody?
No, I just want to, extend just a massive amount of appreciation for the chance to be here, chat with y'all, to, share knowledge, share the love of our gear and
the outdoors.
In the outdoors, yeah. Go outside, touch some ground, touch some earth. It's President's Day. I know, a lot of us had the day off, so hopefully you got a chance. If not, just go outside right now, wherever you're at, and just take a few deep breaths. I think that's, if I could ask anyone to do anything, that would be my call to action, if you will. And I just, again, appreciate opportunities like this and share information with y'all. So thanks for having me again, Mark.
Right on. Thanks for coming on. If you don't mind, I'll give you a holler here in a little bit. Just hang on. After I wrap it up, we'll do the after action review. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here with us tonight. Yeah, we didn't do as much of a conversation about the actual gear, but I think the truth is you just saw a real conversation between humans. The real conversation tonight wasn't about a specific piece of gear. It was about the mindset, getting out in nature, how nature can help bring that together, what Chappy's platform does, helping vets. I'm here to tell you, I only threw out that story about when my first break in service that I worked on the Minnesota Conservation Corps, building a trail, because that was the perfect place for me. When I left the agency, I was able to come back here and spend the first year just in the woods. That was the perfect place for me. Where I would have went mentally, whatever, if it wasn't for the wilderness, I'm not going to lie. I have no idea. If I would have moved to Chicago or, another place, urban area where I'd lived, I have no idea. And I don't mean that in a positive way. I actually think that there was a high probability that shit would have went negative for me. The outdoors, and that's why and maybe I'm biased, right? There it is. So I'm ending with, I'm probably biased. I've lived in the woods my whole life. I spent the vast majority of my life doing stuff that was out in the field, doing shit. and I'm back in it, and I can't wait until I can start doing it again once all this stuff starts healing up. And there's just something about it. It's so therapeutic. It's so tribal. It's so me and you. It's so primordial. Maybe, is that a good way of saying it, Chappy? I mean,
Primal.
primal.
Primordial
Yeah, okay.
would be like before we could appreciate it. Primal is, yeah, yep.
Well, see,
Primal is, that's that living in caves and sitting around fires. That's that we're tapping into that energy.
and that is and that's awesome. So I hope you guys found a little bit of that energy in their conversation tonight. And if you didn't, get out and create it on your own. Do it this weekend. Do it. Take your kids in the backyard. Who gives a shit what anyone else thinks? Go in the backyard and just have your kids learn how to make a fire. You know, spend some time in the evening looking at the stars and trying to figure out how to find the North Star. Smell the wind, smell the tree, you know, just get out and do it. It's so invigorating. Yeah. All right, Chappy, I'm done.
All
Anything else, sir?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. Boys and girls, you know the deal. Gene, get everybody spun up. Get everybody thinking woo in their head, Gene. All right, you know the deal. And I say it all the time, and I mean it all the time. And that's why, again, to the two gentlemen, you know, who just reached out to me recently, that's what it's all about. God bless each and every one of you, man, woman, and child. Thank you so very much. We truly appreciate your support over here. So if you got questions, just reach out, man. That's what I'm here for, right? I'll do the best I can to help you out. Until then, however, keep thinking, keep moving, and never quit. All right, Gene, get them going. All right, everybody, be good. We'll see you on Thursday for our CLS After Dark. All right, everybody. Woo!